So what is protein insufficiency? As the term suggests, it is insufficiency of an important macronutrient, that is protein. Insufficiency of any nutrient for that matter, when it occurs in the body, it leads to a deprived state which is known as deficiency. Obviously, this insufficiency of nutrient will have its own detrimental or negative effects. So this protein insufficiency is a type of malnourishment and can lead to what we commonly call as malnutrition. Normally not seen in affluent or developed countries, but frequently seen in underdeveloped or developing nations. The reason why we need to discuss protein insufficiency now in today's time more than before is for the simple fact that protein is an important macronutrient which is responsible in maintaining a good immune response, and an insufficiency can lead to health implications or ill effects. Protein insufficiency in itself can be a huge area of discussion because of the enormity of various parameters involved. There are causes, concerns, consequences, and control measures, or what we call as solutions, as to how to overcome this challenge of protein insufficiency, which I'll be discussing today. So coming on to the first term, which is malnutrition. Malnutrition is defined as the imbalance between the body's needs, or what we call as requirements, and the intake of nutrients, which can lead to nutritional disorders. So coming on to the types of malnutrition. Malnutrition can be broadly divided into two types. First being overnutrition, and second being undernutrition. In overnutrition, nutrients are oversupplied as against the body's requirements, whereas in undernutrition, nutrients are undersupplied as against the body requirements. Protein insufficiency, also known as protein deficiency, now that we understand, falls in this category of undernutrition. So we need to bear this in mind, both undernutrition and overnutrition can cause nutritional disorders. So when the body's equilibrium of requirement versus intake is disturbed, it can lead to malnutrition. In the next two slides, I'll be discussing about the consequences of protein insufficiency. Okay, first I'll be discussing the primary causes, and I'll be then taking up the secondary causes. So the primary cause of protein insufficiency is low income or low purchasing power. As we all are aware that protein is expensive as against carbohydrates or carbs. Simple example would be, take the pulses or the legume prices and compare them against the cereal prices, and you will realize that legumes and pulses are much more expensive as against your grains or cereals. Or even dairy product prices are not light on the monthly budget. The prime reason for a population being protein inadequate or protein insufficient is low income or low purchasing power. The second cause for protein insufficiency is ignorance or erroneous food habits. Ignorance about why protein is important. General public has very little knowledge, or I should say no knowledge, of what protein deficiency could lead to. In a very interesting survey with almost 2,000 people, it was known that 1/5 of the respondents felt that a diet rich in protein was not good for health. This clearly shows that ignorance could cost you your health. Talking about erroneous food habits. Erroneous food habits is primarily due to faulty mindset, faulty notions, faulty lifestyle, and could be because of a complete lack of motivation. Okay, talking about the third cause of protein insufficiency is overpopulation. Even a cursory examination in India today indicates that there is a major problem of overpopulation. The basic resource that humans need is food, that is synonymous to nutrition, clothing, and shelter. Overpopulation simply leads to resource depletion. Fourth cause is scarcity of food supply. Could be because of droughts, famine, scanty rainfall, and other environmental factors. Okay, it could also be because of the availability of the same food products at a much higher price. Talking about secondary causes of protein insufficiency, where you were able to overcome the primary challenge of procuring the right nutrition for your needs, but still suffer from insufficiency because of certain intrinsic or limiting factors. So the first reason for a secondary cause of protein insufficiency would be something like diarrhea or malabsorption. As we all know, that dietary proteins needs to be digested, broken down into amino acids, and then absorbed and assimilated in the body. So for any reason, if there is diarrhea or intestinal malabsorption, there could be loss of the nutrients involved. Okay, talking about the second concern, that is infections. So the stimulation of an immune response because of an infection like a respiratory infection increases the demand of metabolically derived anabolic energy. This means that any infection is a catabolic activity leading to loss of critical body stores of protein and energy. The third reason could be metabolic or renal disorders like proteinuria or nephrotic syndrome, in which important proteins are lost in the urine. Okay, various stages of the renal disease, you need to monitor the protein intake, where the protein intake could be increased or decreased. Again, the same goes with hepatobiliary diseases, okay, specifically something like the liver cirrhosis, where the intake of protein is increased by almost 50%, and a person needs to take almost close to 1.5 gram per protein per kg of his body ideal body weight. Okay, so hepatobiliary diseases also, you need to monitor the protein intake. Last but not the least would be obesity, your insulin resistance, and diabetes. All of this, which is like your metabolic disorder syndrome X, which we commonly call, this would also lead to more protein requirements for the body. Now, talking about the concerns, okay, India is a nation that has diet rich in carbs and fats, whereas proteins and micronutrient inadequacy is seen in about 70% population. Indian diets derives almost 60% of their proteins from cereals, which is again heartening because of the cereal protein being relatively low digestible and low in quality. Except proteins, both other macronutrients, that is carbohydrates and fats, are stored in the body for future use. Carbohydrate is stored as glycogen in the liver, and fat is stored in adipose tissues. Of the dietary proteins, half of it, that is 50% of it, is used to build skeletal muscle mass, and up to 15% of it is used in structural tissues such as skin and bones. Okay, and the remaining will obviously be used in your visceral organs like the kidney and liver. So, whereas dietary proteins primarily build up the skeletal muscle mass, and in case of deficiency, they have to be broken down by the body, which is known as muscle breakdown, and this creates a negative nitrogen balance. In short, proteins cannot be stored in the body to be used for later needs. Now, in the next slide, we'll be talking about consequences. Okay, the consequences of protein insufficiency. First of all, it impacts the overall quality of life. Okay, and majority of the consequences are obviously health implications, ranging from mild to moderate to severe. Okay, so we'll just have a look at all the consequences. First and foremost is low energy levels or lethargy, tired, run down feeling, a general feeling of malaise. There could be poor appetite because of protein deficiency. There could be changes in your skin, hair, nails, irritability, and mood swings, as we all realize that serotonin, tryptophan, all these are manufactured in the body only when you have sufficient protein. So, this deficiency could lead to irritability or even mood swings. Poor muscle health is directly related. Okay, reduced stamina, increased risk of bone ailments, specifically something like bone fractures. Okay, also it could lead to lower resistance to infections. It could lead to reduced lean body mass, leading to sarcopenia. Okay, also the consequences in majority of the cases in adults, muscle breakdown. When it starts to begin, they will start seeing some amount of weight loss, okay, when it is over a period of time, and this impacts the muscular strength of the individual, and over a period of time, as we discuss, if it continues, it could lead to sarcopenia. So several severe cases of protein deficiency would lead to kwashiorkor and marasmus in children. As you can see in the picture, both the kwashiorkor and the marasmus. Kwashiorkor is a severe protein deficiency with normal calorific intake, generally leading to muscle wastage and severe edema all over the body. Whereas marasmus is another form of protein deficiency along with an overall inadequate calorific intake. This generally leads to wasting of all tissues like muscle and adipose tissue wasting. Kwashiorkor is generally seen in children over the age of 1 year, whereas marasmus is seen in generally children below the age of 1 year. Okay, also going on to the next slide, protein is known as the building block of the body and essential for growth and development. So when the protein deficiency runs long term, apart from wasting that we've seen, it can also result in stunting. Also, in a young country like India, where the average or the median age of the population is less than 30 years, the protein insufficiency could lower the productivity of adults over a period of time and cause a socio-economic burden on the nation. Poor athletic performance can be attributed to protein inadequacy. So, what are the solutions to improvise the protein deficiency? First and foremost is look for good sources of proteins which are easily available in the daily foods and try to include it in each and every meal. Okay, I'll just give you a few examples. You have dairy products, okay, ranging from milk to curd, yogurt, cheese. You need to include that as much as possible in the diet. So if you're lactose tolerant and there are no issues with dairy, definitely dairy should be included in the diet. The second would be poultry, okay, your chicken meat, or even your turkey meat. It could be something like eggs, which are frequently available. uh, Third one would be fish, okay, something like soy, and variety of products that are made out of soy, like soy milk, tofu, tempeh. Okay, also variety of nuts that are available, okay, right from almonds to walnuts and everything. Oil seeds, certain vegetables like these mushroom, green leafy vegetables, which are an important source of proteins, could be included. Okay, also at the same time, you can use certain cereals which are rich source of proteins, like your quinoa, amaranth, spelt, and all of these. Okay, uh, there are certain sources of protein which are not complete proteins, okay, like your dals. They are a good source of protein, but since they don't have all the essential amino acids, they are known as incomplete proteins. So these incomplete proteins can be combined with other sources to be made complete. So two type of incomplete proteins can be combined together to make a complete protein. These sources are essentially known as complementary proteins. So if you can see the next slide, it is showing legumes and grains, okay. Both legumes and grains, they fall in the category of incomplete protein. So legumes are deficient in two essential amino acid, methionine and tryptophan, whereas when you see grains, they have the two essential amino acids, methionine and tryptophan, but they lack in the other two amino acid, that is isoleucine and lysine, okay, which is present in the legumes. So when you combine both the legumes and the grains, they together would form a very good source of complementary proteins. A classic example would be your rajma chawal, okay. So I would suggest that you need to look out for such complementary proteins. Specifically, the vegetarians need to focus on these complementary proteins. Okay, then talking about supplementation, and we need to see why supplementation is important. Okay, agricultural produce cannot suffice the requirements. We also know that to treat severe deficiency of proteins without increasing the overall calorific value of the diet drastically, supplementation will be very important. To tackle high protein requirements in people with digestibility disorders and health issues, again will play a very important role. Athletic needs to improve performance, again you'll need supplementation. Urban settings, for the sake of convenience, you will need supplementation. So in India, the heavy reliance on cereals for dietary proteins, from both practical and cultural standpoints, supplementation may be the option with the highest efficacy potential. Okay, also what we need to understand is nutrition education will play a very important part to improvise this protein insufficiency. Okay, government projects, policies on nutrition needs to be well developed so that we counter this problem of protein insufficiency. Another solution would be to make low cost protein rich foods available to the general population, and food fortification or enrichment could also be a very good solution to improvise on the protein insufficiency. Now, in the last part of the presentation, I would be talking about certain researches that I have come across, and I would like to put forward this across to the participants today. So, most researches on children's protein consumption in Southeast Asia countries suggested that only dietary protein intake and not the total dietary energy deficiency is associated with child growth. This itself shows the importance of protein in the daily diet. Prior researches have shown that in diets deriving over 50% of the protein from cereal sources, protein quality is relatively poor, affecting the biological value and limiting the protein utilization. A whole lot of studies suggest that animal proteins are complete proteins, that is, they are readily digested since they have a higher PDCAS score and has a higher bioavailability. They also serve as an efficient source of important micronutrients that are needed by the body. Many studies have found that an adequate intake of protein in old age helps fight against physiological age-related sarcopenia. Specifically, poultry meat, which is a good quality protein source, characterized by high digestibility and chewability, along with an excellent micronutrient portfolio such as calcium, iron, zinc, and vitamin A, is particularly important for the elderly population. Epidemiological studies conducted across various parts of the world in highly diverse population with different food preferences and nutritional habits provide solid information on association between diet and health. Several prospective studies support the association between poultry consumption and good health, obviously as a part of vegetable-rich balanced diet. This diet is associated with reduced risk for developing cardiovascular and type 2 diabetes mellitus. Collating various researches on the eating pattern of Indians, it was found that almost 73% Indians are protein deficient and around 80% of the Indian diets are considerably deficient in protein. A study conducted by IMRB published a report which said several cities in India are highly protein deficient. Leading the list of protein deficient cities is Lucknow, a city ironically known for its delicious kebabs and biryanis. Following Lucknow were two cities, Ahmedabad and Chennai, and in the third place was Vijayawada, and this was followed by the two metro cities, Mumbai and Delhi.